at this now. Okay. So I just want to thank everyone for coming today. I'm really excited about this topic that we're going to be talking about, which is how community farms really work with schools and the different kind of models that are out there, and kind of envisioning where some of these community farms, where it can go. So I'm really excited to have Seth and Liz and Michael from Northampton, and Christine should also be here. And so we're going to start with Michael, and then for all the panelists, if you guys can just talk about yourself a little bit, and then what your farm does overall, and then more specifically what your program actually does. And then Michael, you can start.
Great, thank you. Hi, everybody. So my name is Michael Skillicorn. I work at Grow Food Northampton. I've been here for about 4 years. Hi, Lisa. So we're a nonprofit in Northampton, Mass. that was founded about 10 years ago with the purpose of purchasing farmland. So it was really a community effort to buy some farmland that was up for sale and could be developed. So we own a 121-acre farm. But the decision was made back then that we didn't want to be farmers. We didn't want to be a farming nonprofit. So we lease the vast majority of that land to private farms. And this season we'll have 8 different farms on the land. And part of that original vision was really about education as well. So it wasn't quite explained, but I think they wanted to make sure that people and kids especially could come onto the land and experience it and learn about farming and where their food comes from. So since that time, we've really built up our education programming, and it started with very limited number of field trips, so school field trips. So we got some funding, and we had elementary school kids come out to the farm, and we would take them on a tour. So one of the nice things that, since we have multiple farmers on our land, is we can visit multiple farms and show a different scales of farming enterprises and that sort of thing. So I have a few pictures I will share with you guys, nothing fancy. But this is kind of what our field trips look like. To be a little more specific, it's K through 3 usually, and 2 classes at a time. So, 40 kids, something like that. And we have 2 educators that then split the group in half and take them on a little tour. So with the field trips and with the cooking classes that I'll talk about in a second, like really the foundation of it is hands-on learning. So that's the value that we add to schools, I think, and something that they like to do but can't necessarily do all the time. So whenever there's an opportunity to touch something on the farm, harvest kale, harvest a potato, carry a bucket, that's the stuff that the kids remember, and that's really impactful. So it's hard to squeeze a lot into an hour and 15-minute long field trip. And we have tried to make ties to curriculum in the past and do on some cursory level, but ultimately, if it's a win for us if kids have a positive association and a positive memory of being on the farm and being active on the farm. So I guess for folks who are thinking about doing this in the future, I would just encourage you that's a great bar to meet. If kids really just enjoy themselves out there and see something new and are active, that's a really great bar to meet. So I think the first year we started with 6 field trips, and then funding dependent sort of grew. And then we also started doing classroom cooking workshops. So we kind of made the shift to going into schools as opposed to having kids come out to the farm. And this might not be relevant to some of the folks here, but I wanted to talk about it in the event that you could actually do these on the farm. You don't have to be in the classroom. So similarly, about an hour long, we have really simple recipes and guide the kids through this hands-on activity. So they get to make their own kale apple salad or veggie hummus wrap. And usually about 15-20 minutes of an activity or some kind of reading of a book or looking at seeds and that kind of thing. And then we jump right into the recipe. And yeah, so the kids get to experiment on their own and try things and decide what they like and they don't like. So again, the bar is really just the experience of it. And just to mention briefly, when COVID happened, we kind of switched to virtual versions of all of this. We kind of did live tours and recorded and live field trips for kids. And so some of this stuff might be valuable post-COVID too, just it becomes more accessible if you can spread it around more broadly. And we actually did cooking classes too, where it's a bit of an effort, but we actually delivered the ingredients to each household of the kids that signed up, and then did a live Zoom class. So that's kind of it on the pictures. But I wanted to touch on, one of the prompts was why schools. And so for Grow Food Northampton, it's sort of built into our mission that we wanted to do education, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we would do education with schools, but that's really the direction we gravitated towards. And for the first number of years, what we would do is offer to all the K-3 teachers, do you want a free field trip? Do you want a free cooking class? And those who wanted to would sign up. But we started to notice over the years that it was really the same teachers every year, and we weren't getting the breadth that we wanted. So we made the leap a couple of years ago, and I went to principals with sort of the dedicated teachers from each elementary school and said, hey, we're able to offer this to every single K-3 class that you have. Can you help us do that? And so they essentially sort of created the schedule and went to the teachers and said, here's when you're going. And in that way, we were able to then serve every single K-3 class. And the reason why teachers weren't signing up before wasn't because they didn't want to go. They weren't grumbling when they were given the schedule of when you're going to grow. It was more like they got so much going on. And I think that's a real theme of working with schools, and a real challenge is that like a farm, I guess everyone's just overextended. So sort of competing for attention. So, teacher would get an email, do you want a free field trip? And maybe they just had too much going on and didn't want to click the link or something. So doing it the other way, sort of they had to opt out, which nobody ever did, really worked well. And I wanted to say too that I really like working with the public schools because it's they serve everybody. And if you go to sort of a private model of, sign up if you want, like we had even with the teachers, you see that it's the folks that are predisposed anyways are the ones that are going to go. So just from a mission standpoint, I really like working with the public schools and like working with public schools because it serves everybody who's there, regardless of whether their parents have the capacity to sign up online or not, or whether they're familiar with farms and kale or not. It just serves everybody. So that's a powerful piece of working with schools in particular.
Michael, can you also talk about like the structure of like who does what on the farm and like who's in charge of working on the education side and versus other sectors?
Sure. Yeah. So because we're a nonprofit, we don't farm, we have an education person who coordinates with the schools and then liaises with the farmer. And what we really try to do is not burden the farmer at all. So we say, hey, this is when we're coming to the farm, and can you plant a row of kale for us, please? And can we walk into your farm store and just make sure everything is squared away? And then we engage with the schools and the scheduling and actually do the education. So that's the gist of it. And then in terms of who we work with at the schools, like I mentioned, really the enthusiastic teachers and principals are the ones who we really start with and work with the most. And those are the folks that are going to carry any of us trying to work with schools through this kind of work. Does that answer your question, or
Yeah.
others?
And then I also wanted to know, like, what is the vision that you guys have for the future? So you've had this programming that you've been working with, and what do you envision moving forward?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's tough to say with COVID. I mean, we did these remote cooking classes, like I said, and it was more of an opt-in kind of after school program, and it was just so successful. We lost kind of that serves everybody component of it, but the popularity of it was sort of undeniable. So there's always a question of, well, should we try to do kind of sliding scale fee for service programming that's outside of the schools? Or should we really just double down on sticking always with the schools? So I think that's a question for us. Another element is older kids and high schoolers. So there's so much potential, and we've started to do this a little bit with the high school and trying to do with the middle school, sort of internships for students to get them involved in their school food, which purchases some local food from local farms, and also with agriculture and food systems and social justice, and where all of those things combine. So those are the areas for exploration.
Okay, great. And is there anything else before we move on to the next panelist that you want to speak about?
I don't think so. Obviously open for questions, which maybe can come later, but I'll hang tight till then.
Yeah, I want to do questions at the end. I just want to let everyone speak, and then so just hold the questions for now, and then we'll open up Q&A at the end. And then next, if we can have Liz, are you ready to present? Maybe? No?
Yes. Hi,
Okay.
everybody. Sorry to unmute. Classic. Thanks so much for having us. Really happy to be here. We're really representing the newer to the scene, small and scrappy approach. So it's of great benefit to us to be hearing from all of you other farms and what you're up to in this space. So really a privilege to be on this panel with all of you. I'm going to just share a little bit about me and our farm and what we're up to, and happy to take any questions here from anybody. I'm going to share my screen. I do have some slides to share, so 1 second here. Can folks see this okay?
Yes, looks so. There you go. Yeah.
There we go. Thanks. So we are up here in the North Shore in Ipswich, Mass, nonprofit community farm with a food access mission. As I mentioned just a minute ago, we're newer in the space of working on education and programming, which love to just tell you a little bit about how we got started and what that looks like for us. Food access mission for us, what that looks like is growing food to give away. So we have a core membership of full paying CSA members. It's about a third of our overall organizational budget. And then the rest we're giving away through subsidized and free CSA shares here on the farm, and also through partners who we collaborate with on the distribution end, folks that are closer to the ground and are doing distribution mostly to low-income people across the North Shore in food pantry form, as well as mobile markets and cooked meals. And the community engagement piece of our work is newer to us. And part of that came out of being asked by community partners to work with them on education and programming. It wasn't something that we started out in that space. Our history, a little bit about us. We're a newer organization. As I mentioned, our first growing season was in 2015. So we're just starting our 7th year this year. Had a staff primarily of 1 year-round farm manager with a seasonal crew, a volunteer board, all funded locally, mostly through individuals so far. And in 2018, we got our own nonprofit status, and the executive director role, which is my role with us, was new role as of last year. So really doing some growing and mostly have been a farm up to this point. We grow on about 5 acres of lease land here in Ipswich, and our landlords are a Catholic order of nuns, the Sisters of Notre Dame, who have historically had creation care and stewardship of the earth and the land as part of their values and mission. So it's been a neat partnership with them to be growing food on their land here. And then we have a couple of additional acres coming into our rotation this year, also leased from a private family across town. including these pictures here to give you a sense of our start. On the bottom left there, you see that yellow tent. We had our CSA pickup was under a tent the first full year of our operation because we had no buildings, which is pretty incredible. On the far right, you can see the tractor holding a 350-gallon cube, which was how we watered all of our crops the first season before we had any irrigation. And this middle shot is some awesome high-skill volunteers who helped build a greenhouse and a high tunnel in the first couple of years of the operation. And this photo is after we've got the skin on, which for those of you in farming, you know, just like the crucial nature of those tools and infrastructure to us doing the work. And really started from zero at this organization, and really proud of where we've come in this short time. Okay, I wanted to share a little bit about our approach with community programming. Feel really strongly that there's some leaders already in this space here on the North Shore, and we want to defer to them when possible and work with them as much as we can. So this picture, while both images look great and awesome, kind of tell a strong story about our experience. This image on the left with our farmer in overalls doing Big Smile. This was a program we ran through Ipswich Public Schools with an awesome partner called Birth to Three, which works with younger kids coming up into the school system. And we had them out on the farm for a weekly program a couple of years ago before we had any farm education staff. And really, we were relying on our production farm team to do education and programming, which is not sustainable, I don't think, and was, while a wonderful experience for everybody involved, was just too much to ask. And so we realized if we're going to be in this area of running programs and working with the community, we need separate staff to do that work. And we can't expect the production crew to be doing it. So on this image on the right here is our farm educator from a few years back, Emily, who had been a full-time farmer with us and at other places in the past. And here she is leading a workshop with some kids at Ipswich Public Schools about planting in their raised beds. Both awesome human beings and excellent with people skills and farming, but we really found for us, it worked better and made more sense to have different roles and responsibilities for the teaching and community engagement work as for the food and production work. And this image kind of tells that story a bit. Because we're newer at this work, we're doing a lot more talking with our partners. So other folks that I'm hearing from are like, maybe they have a set curriculum and programming and plans, which, you know, you'll hear about from some of these other panelists, which is amazing, but we are more in a learning phase and doing a lot of checking in and reflecting on what's working, what's not working. What should we be doing as opposed to other organizations? This year, for example, we got approached by our local housing authority to help run some programming around raised bed gardens there. And there's another organization right in our area that is a huge leader in raised bed gardening. They're a couple towns away. And so the first thing we did was actually reach out to them first. And we said, would you be interested in coming in? And we could partner with you and support, but we would want to defer to your expertise because they're such a great organization, Backyard Growers in Gloucester. Some of you probably know them. And we had a great conversation and they said, it's a little too far out of our service area and we can't do it. So we are happy for you to take the lead and let us know how we can support you with resources. And that's really how we like to work, which is rather than charging into a space where somebody already is working and is effective, but try to learn from them and do it with them if possible. Also just note here about our value at the bottom, grow. I feel like we just want to acknowledge growing isn't just for plants, it's for people, it's for organizations. We have a lot to learn. We come from a place of being more expert in farm production and growing food and taking care of equipment and feeding people. And we have a lot more to learn about collaboration, working with our community and what it means to teach and engage, especially the next generation. So we love learning and we're, along with all of you, still recognizing we have a lot to learn even as we're trying to teach others. Something we think about a lot is what is our community work and how does it relate to our mission? We feel so passionately, as all of you do, about sustainable agriculture, taking care of the land and getting great high quality food to people who need it. And we don't want to just run workshops and education and engagement around just how to, like how to garden, how to cook food. Like that stuff is so important, but we feel like there's a larger mission that we have about bringing awareness to inequality in the food system. Why are so many folks in our community struggling? This has gotten worse here in the North Shore, which is a very wealthy area, but even here in the pandemic, a lot of folks are struggling. And so part of what we try to work into our programs in education, even with younger ages, in a way they can understand, is why are there problems and what can we do about it? This image here on the right is just one way that we do that, which is many folks here I'm sure know about the HIP program, which was Healthy Incentives Program. And it's basically a way for folks on SNAP food stamps to be able to afford fresh and healthy local food. And it just shows visually how powerful the sales were in that community when it was more affordable to them. And I think a lot of what we come across in our sector of food access is myths and stereotypes about low income people and the foods they'll eat or won't eat, things they'll choose or they won't choose. And so for us to just be reminding people about facts is really helpful. And this is one tool to do it. We also are working on trying to build bridges across traditional boundaries. Maybe folks in town who would never be together across each other's paths might be in the same physical space at a garden workshop, at the farm, out in the community. And so we're trying to build those bridges. And also trying to work on our programs happening both at the farm, which is of course interest to a lot of people, but also out in the community. Working this summer with partners at our local YMCA, who's putting in some raised bed gardens, doing programming with them at their summer camp, with our public schools, with the Housing Authority. So really trying to not just limit our sphere of work to just what happens on the farm, but also try to go to where people are. This is a list of some of our partners. We work with public schools in a couple of ways. We're really lucky here in Ipswich that we have an awesome organization of middle and high school students who are doing a lot of work for environment and sustainability, composting, recycling at the schools, major raised bed gardens at the schools. So we had folks that it made sense to work with right away. They already were here in the community and reached out to us. And we've been working with them for a few years and trying to grow that programming. Obviously, not every school district is going to have that. So, we do feel really lucky to have those folks as partners. Up top here, you can see Sisters of Notre Dame, our landlords. They also run a preschool, which is right next door to us. So we have this captive audience of 3, 4, and 5-year-olds who are in and around the farm and greenhouse in the school calendar year, which is really fun and has led to some great collaboration and kind of a natural training ground for us to work on our education and for those kids to get outdoors and be on the farm. So maybe I'll pause here, just because I don't want to go long, and just ask any questions or thoughts from folks. And I'm going to stop my screen share here.
Yeah, that was great. I actually, there was already some questions I was going to ask everyone towards the end, but you answered a lot of those already.
Oh, great.
But I'm going to have Seth go, and then at the end, we'll take all the questions. Thank you so much, Liz. That was great.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Very excited to talk about this subject. I work for Medway Community Farm, named Seth Teramain. I've been here for since 2018. And I'll give you a little background of the farm, and then I'll talk a little bit more about our school program. So we're a sort of a traditional organic farm. We grow on 7 acres of land. We have several market avenues that we're marketing towards. So we have a large CSA. We have our own on-property store, farm store. We also have our farmers markets and our wholesale accounts. So we're doing quite a lot in terms of growing and selling our own vegetables, and sort of incorporating education into that as well. So when we started, we had education was certainly part of our mission already. And so the farming and education went hand in hand straight from the beginning of when the farm was was created. And so we have a lot going on, and with our education, we have so many kids come to the farm that it's insane. We can't barely keep up. So I'm gonna just share my my screen here for just a second. Test. Can you see that?
Yes, we can. It's perfect.
Okay. So yeah, school programming here at MCF. Like I said, we started back in 2008 with the express purpose of education, and as well as other things there, charitable, environmental, and historical purposes. We also the overall and continued education motivations for us to start that was obviously to, I'm sure everybody is similar, but engage as many kids, teachers, parents, etc., and how we grow food, and get them to think about the food programs, or the food systems that they're already partaking in. So where their veggies, their fruit, their meat, their flowers, their honey, and all of their natural resources get from the place that they are produced to their home. And you'll see some pictures along the way, but I just wanted to point out that I'm cheating here because that's my daughter actually. And she's 3 there, and she's wearing a princess dress with John Deere planting flowers. So, just wanted to point that out. Some more motivation. So we are community involvement and part of the town. So we're trying to integrate ourselves as much as possible through the school programming as well as other avenues. So working with town departments, sitting on committees, and helping out the town when asked. We are leasing most of our land from the town, and so we have a very close relationship now with the town, which wasn't always the case, but we do now have that. We also trying very hard to create relationships with the town personnel, and recruiting people for board positions who are heavily involved in the town. We're also sort of interested in the natural marketing that comes from those programming. Families are our targeted group, and we are the farm is in every single 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade student's family, and we're hoping to have people talk about the programs on the farm, and then also visit the farm and become more involved through the CSA, farmers markets, farm store, and certainly volunteering, and anything else that we're doing in terms of community outreach. So I'll talk a little bit about the program specifically. Right now we have a 4th grade program as well as a 2nd grade and 3rd grade program. The 4th grade program comes to the farm, and in 2011 we started with small with 2 4th grade classes. In 2012 that increased to 4 classes, and then in 2014 all of the 4th grade classes were coming to the farm. And this evolved through parents actually calling the principal and requesting that their kids are that were in one of the classes that was going to the farm. So they actually, after we had been facilitating these classes, they asked us to open up the programming so that we could incorporate everybody. The second and third grade programs back in 2012 started with garden plot programs, in which case all of the classes at that time, I think 13 classes at that time were participating. 2 classes at a time would come out, and it would take in 20-minute blocks. We also had a 6th grade program, garden plot program, but that was discontinued for interest and cost. So you can see there in the beginning that we were actually paying for the implementation of these school programs, and once that became overwhelming, or we weren't able to continue with subsidizing those, we went to the schools, and currently the schools are paying for all the costs, including our time, the seeds that go in, and any compost or soil that's going out, as well as farm plots. And so, and that gets paid in a couple of different ways through the PTO, as well as other funding from the school. In our 4th grade program specifically, that all of the 4th graders now come to the farm as part of that program. In the beginning of the season, education staff meets with the principal and whatever the teacher is coordinating that program to set goals, dates, just go over all of the programming, and then also to make sure that we're hitting any curriculum requirements that they have and want us to help with. The 4th graders are then all bused to the farm. We have 90 kids per day, usually on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and they come 4 times during the year. And you can see there that the sessions in the garden are pretty much what you expect: soil prep and planting, weeding and watering on the 2nd visit, weeding, watering, and plant health just to check in on the plants on the 3rd visit, and the 4th visit is harvest and sell. In which case they actually harvest and sell right through our farm store, which is everybody's really excited about that. All the kids really love that. And then overall, though, during those sessions, we go through, there's different setups that we have on each of those things. So the garden is one of those sessions. We have something on composting. We have something on soil and soil health, the anatomy of plants, and then also ecosystems that we have on the farm. And we have both our fields, but we also have wooded areas as well as waterfront areas that really help to emphasize the ecosystems as they're walking through the farm. And then other things that they have is, sort of the journaling about their experience, and then any hands-on labor. So sometimes, they really love being able to, like someone said, carry a bucket or something like that. But even picking up rocks out of the fields, which we have a lot of, they just love that hands-on experience. So the 2nd and 3rd grade programs are actually at the school, and it's similar where the education staff meets with the principal and the teacher, and goes over any programming and any curriculum that they want to do. 2 classes at a time, again, still come out, and they go over, very simple things, plant parts, needs of the plant, soil prep, and then also help and participate in the planting, weeding, and watering. And now those sessions run for about 30 minutes. And it's been upped to 14 classes total. So benefits, certainly, the intrinsic benefits to educating young people about their food systems are present, and how those fit into their science curriculum, very important. And then, like I said, kids really getting into the selling of their vegetables. It's not so much the money they make, which the money that they do sell off of that goes back into the school, but they just love being able to show off to their parents or whoever's coming through the farm store that, what they have done, and all the veggies they've grown, and they get really into, talking about the taste and the texture and all of the stuff that they've learned throughout the program. So, and then of course the other benefits with partnering with schools, like I said, our targeted groups are families. So We do see an increased CSA memberships. We do see more people coming out to the farm and participating in our community outreach efforts, like our fall festival, or even people signing up for our other education things. So like adult educations, like running chickens in their backyard, or gardening, or whatever those things are. And then also we actually had some part of my workforce come from those same kids. So that picture there is most of those kids came from the 4th grade program. And so they were hired as, they were almost my entire staff for one whole season. So certainly a lot of benefits just beyond just the education, which clearly we're talking about today. But as a market, or as a farm as a whole, we're talking about even more benefits than just being in the school. So, and I just put some quick tips on developing these relationships. As Liz was talking about, they're starting small, finding advocates both within the school and within the community as a large. Certainly, it helped us getting other people involved. There's the wellness, health, science, admin staff, or other people in the town. And then also thinking about preliminary plans, what would be your approach to all of these things before you actually go talk to people, so that they can see that you have an idea of what you're talking about. And I put on there, don't go broke administering a program, just because that's something that we ran up against. You don't want to be subsidizing these things to the detriment of whatever other programming or farming that you're doing. And then also have goals for your 3, 5, 10 years down the road, so you can move towards those, even though if those things are going to change. So that was sort of quick and dirty, but Carissa, did you have anything else that you wanted me to talk about?
Yeah, and I mean, I've been asked this to everyone, but if you just want to talk about, where do you guys see yourself in the future with this programming?
Sure. The other things that actually I didn't have on those slides, we run summer programming as well. So we have quite a few, we do April vacation programming as well as summer programming. And so those are sort of day trip things that people can come do. So we're also working on getting, camp status to have more people come out to the farm and be able to do week-long programs. We've also have in the plan, sort of like Three Sisters have next door. We're planning on doing a preschool at some point, because we still have a lot of land in which we could develop that. I'm not sure if we're looking to go outside of Medway, but certainly we can incorporate more classes, more grades into that programming, given the school's budgeting allowances, as well as our own capacity to take on those things. So
Yeah, thank you so much. That's amazing. And then next we're going to have Christine, which is our final panelist, speak. If you're ready to speak.
I'm ready. My name is Christine Schell, and I work at the Natick Community Organic Farm. I'm the school scout and program volunteer coordinator. We're a nonprofit farm. We have about 27 acres. Only 5 of them are farmable. The rest is wetland. And about 2 of those acres are devoted to vegetable growing. What's really unique about the Natick Community Organic Farm is that the town of Natick partially owns us. So they own the land. They own the barn that just burned down. If you hadn't heard about that, that happened back in March. And they own a lot of the main buildings. So we have a really close and intertwined and occasionally contentious. I mean, mostly harmonious, but not without, constant negotiation over town resources. So that makes us kind of unique. It's part of our mission to provide not only open space and farm products, but experiential hands-on education. So education is part of our mission. We've been the Natick Community Organic Farm since the late 70s, but the land has probably been farmed since pre-contact times and has been used for various things over many, many years, including carnation farm, cranberries, etc. So I would say it's been fascinating listening to all of you because our organization is fairly mature, I think. We have a really robust educational program. I do the schools and the scouts. Somebody else does the public programming, which includes summer, after school programs, programs for homeschoolers, etc. And we also have a forest program for preschoolers. We don't call it a preschool because it's not licensed. So it's a forest program for preschoolers based on the walled kindergarten model out of Denmark and Germany. We have programs for teens. We have an apprentice program where I believe they start in middle school and work through high school. And some of them actually get hired to be farmers in their later high school years. So they move from apprentice to farmer. We also have a teen summer program called the Teen Work Crew. And they're hired, I think, for 4 weeks in the summer. And they mostly work on building projects. So there's a lot going on, and I was in full agreement. I heard some of you mention that it's overwhelming for the farming staff to take on educational things, and we certainly see that at our farm. So we're fairly segmented in terms of education and back office work like marketing, fundraising, membership. And then we have the farming, the production crew. The farmers not only raise vegetables, but we have a flower operation, and we have animals on the farm that we raise for meat and wool and eggs. So I'm just going to jump ahead a little bit. The relationship between the farmers, what the farmers do and what the education staff is highly synergistic. So one could really not survive without the other. Even if our meat and vegetables aren't bringing in loads of money, we still need that, or the educators wouldn't have anything to do with the kids. So education tends to be fairly profitable on the farm, but again, we heavily rely on the farmers to make the magic happen. So just to back up about the municipal quality of our farm, we get a lot of great things from the town. In turn, we give them things. So every K through 5 student in the Natick Public Schools, and there's 5 schools, every student is offered one farm program a year for free. So kindergartners get the maple sugaring / baby animal farm tour in March. First graders work on the plant and animal interdependence curriculum. Second graders do sheep shearing. Third graders have a pollinator program, and fourth graders have a rocks to soil, how geology built a farm. So that's a huge component of what we do. We also market those programs to other non-Natick public schools, other public schools, Waltham, Boston, Framingham, and we also have private schools coming to our farm too. So there's a lot going on, and I'd be happy to talk more about that. But I just do the school programs. So and it might be interesting. We had to pivot this year, of course, because there are no big field trips coming to the farm. So I ended up taking my school curriculum, which matches the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks. And I turned them into farm pod classes. So now we offer the curriculum-based programs that we would normally offer to the schools. We offer them to small pods, basically family groups that sign up. And that's been pretty successful. It hasn't fully covered the gap financially or time-wise, but it's been a nice way for us to practice learning how to pivot, which is not a bad thing. Yeah, let me see. I'm just going to check my notes. Okay. And just, you know, because we are a mature organization, I didn't come up with all of this. I inherited a lot of amazing stuff, and I tweaked my portion as the Massachusetts state standards changed. So I was lucky to inherit, but at one, you know, this program grew slowly. Back when the farm started, Linda Simpkins, who was the first director and just retired after 38 years, 3 years ago, she started small. She had kids over to watch the sheep shearing, and she went into some schools to do some plant programs. So things definitely evolved over time. And one of the things that a few of you were saying is that eventually you learn that the farmers can't be doing that much education, or they're just not farming. And I think she learned that early on and started hiring specific education staff to, you know, administer that part of the farm. Yeah, so don't get discouraged because it really can't happen all in a couple years. It's a long process. Even for me to update my programs with the curriculum shifts about 3-4 years ago, it was a lot of work. I ended up meeting with the assistant superintendent of schools in Natick. She gave me all the curriculum that K-4 were doing, and I had to pore over that and look at what they were doing and how they were adapting. And then I had to adapt my curriculum too. So, and I did work with a few of the schools. A few of my programs needed minimal adaptations, and a couple others needed a little bit more, but they're better for it. So I was happy to do it. I could go on. Let me just look at my notes. Yeah, in terms of benefits, I think that Seth said it nicely. Anything we do just comes around again. So kids who visit our summer programs in the summer, their parents are maybe buying into our CSAs, or they're coming to pick up meat or eggs. Kids who come in the school programs maybe decide that they want to apply for our apprentice program in middle school, or they want to be on the teen work crew when they're teens. So everything is very much supporting the other. And because we are a membership-based organization too, not for everything we do, but for some of the things we do. Again, kids who start coming to the farm with their families, those families eventually, in many cases, become members. So, it's funny because as I was putting this presentation together this week, I forgot to mention my own family, which was very odd. So when we moved to Natick from Brighton 30 years ago, that very first spring, we walked down the street and we stumbled upon a sugar shack. And it was Linda Simpkins, the former director, boiling sap into syrup. And we felt like we were in a magical place. I had never visited a sugar shack before. And so for 30 years, I've been buying my syrup from the farm. And again, the farm for me is only a half a mile from my house, so I'm pretty lucky. And when my kids were old enough, they went to the summer programs. And then eventually, both my daughters did the teen work crew in the summer. And one of them got hired to be an educator in the summer programs for, I think, a couple of years. So I think that's the kind of effect that the farm has on the community and has on kids, is that, you know, for a lot of these kids, if they're growing up either on a suburban lot, which is heavily fertilized and full of nice green lawn, and you see a lot of that in Natick, or you have kids who have no lawn, if there are, children coming from Framingham or parts of Boston. So the farm is truly mind-blowing and exciting to be able to pet a chicken. I just pick up chickens now. It's no big deal. But for kids to pet a chicken or to do farm chores and feel a warm egg, to look at a pig that's, behind a fence 2 feet away and see that, slimy snout full of dirt. And even to taste kale, we have a program where kids, taste vegetables. That's like a really mind-blowing thing for kids. So that's the very exciting thing that, that we do. And we hope that, I think for many kids, it reverberates in their household. And I just think the benefits are enormous.
Thank you, Christine. That's amazing.
I have pictures, by the way, but.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to show them now?
Sure. I can do that. Let's see. I haven't done this before, so forgive me. It might take me a while.
Okay. I'm actually going to just ask Michael a question right before you do that, just because he has to leave at 3. And this is really a question for all of you, is just really what were some of the biggest challenges during the pandemic, but also what were your biggest wins, and kind of we're kind of still in the pandemic, but as we come out of it, is there anything that you want to like permanently change that you learned from the pandemic?
Sure. So I think the biggest challenge was figuring out how we could be of service. So like everybody here, all of our work was predicated on being physically together and doing hands-on things and working with the schools. And so when the pandemic happened, the being together and the hands-on thing kind of went out the window. And then the schools were just also in absolute chaos, trying to figure out what their situation was going to be. So the already tenuous kind of communication with the schools was even more tenuous and difficult. So so we spent a lot of time trying different things out. What's going to work, kind of what's going to stick in a virtual way. So kind of live field trips, like I was saying, and we did a weekly Facebook Live tour, like time at the garden, and on different topics. And so there's just a feeling of uncertainty and a bit of frustration of like, are we really adding value here? Are we being useful? But then, like I was mentioning, we kind of landed on this after school cooking class thing, which was obvious right away that like, oh yeah, this sticks, like this is working. This is really popular. So it opened the door for us for a lot of future thinking, like I was mentioning about, maybe there are ways that we should work outside of the schools, the public schools, like so many of the other presenters are doing, and explore kind of a mix of working with schools and then working outside of schools on weekends and after school and that sort of thing. So I think that's a big success sort of during the pandemic, but also informing how we're going to move forward.
Thank you, Michael. That was great. So I won't hold you up anymore, but I just want to thank you for taking the time to just share about the work that you're doing. And we're just all grateful that, there's people out there doing this. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And my coworker Elena was supposed to be here, and she's the real expert, but it's nice seeing all you guys, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you. Okay, Christine, if you can, if you want to share your photos and just tell us about it.
Okay. So we are hosting 3 TerraCore volunteers. TerraCore is a branch of AmeriCorps. And so one of the TerraCore volunteers put these pictures together. They wouldn't necessarily have been the ones I would have chosen, but I was grateful that I didn't have to do it. So just keep that in mind. This is our flower team. The woman on the left, her name is Heather. She is 22. She's now our flower manager and our livestock manager at this point. She started with us as a volunteer when she was 15 and having a tough time at home. She ended up doing an online high school program. And so she eventually got hired, and she is a pretty amazing young lady. Okay, and there's I'll go through these quickly. This is TerraCore wrangling some, I'm not sure what chickens, yep, chickens. Sometimes we have turkeys, so I wasn't sure if that's what I was looking at. And again, a child and Audrey working with our pigs. We have some woods out back. We have a pond and a nature trail, and it leads to the Sudbury Aqueduct. So we access that pretty frequently with some of our programs. Inquisitive children wearing a mask. I have to say, we had a really booming public programs experience this past year. Parents were desperate to get their kids off screens and out of the house. So we ran programs through the winter that we've never run before. So it's been pretty fabulous to see kids outdoors a lot in all weather. Touching piglets, feeding goats. This is a newer program we started that's preschool based in terms of age. Again, we responded to the needs of the pandemic. So while my job kind of diminished because I do school and scout programs, other parts of the farm's programming really flourished. I won't narrate all of these. We have a lot of dogs on the farm. So this is one of them. Treasure hunt, Happy Kid, our maple sugaring operation, more Happy Kids. Again, in the snow, last fall. We also, this is our forest preschool program, and that's it. And like one of you had mentioned, putting things in kids' hands is just the best thing. So even though it can be hard when we run school programs, sometimes we have 22 kids, and I always try to think about putting things in kids' hands. So today we did a pod class, only four kids, 4 or 5. And it was an egg to chicken program. And I made sure the instructor knew where the buckets were, and I had her pull up weeds in some of our flower beds. So in addition to listening to the teacher, they were also getting their, touching the chicken, touching the eggs, and then also doing a little bit of a chore during the pod. And we do try to do that with schools too. So.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned that the pandemic actually brought more people out. How was it for you, Seth and Liz, relating to the pandemic? What were some of the biggest challenges and some of the things that came out of it that were positive?
I think the biggest challenge that we had was that, like Christine said, you were running programs through the winter. We didn't really have that capacity to do so. So the biggest challenge that we had was that we had to cancel our 4th grade program, right? Because they weren't in school and we weren't able to continue with those things. However, when we opened up like April vacation programming, we did have the capacity to do that, where people could come in outside of the school, right? We were just being able to sign up through community education rather than through the school. Those things filled up incredibly fast, right? Because people, like you said, Christine, people are just trying to get their kids out of the house, and so that sort of felt like a win, because people are, we were able to offer that. But the other thing that you asked there, Carissa, was what do you consider a win? And I think also just the knowledge that we are so valued, because we're now planning. We had to skip this year as well for the 4th grade program. However, we're planning now to go to the 5th grade program in the fall, to sort of make up for the fact that those kids had to miss out on the 4th grade program that kids are looking forward to. So we're going to just do something simple, where we're going to prepare beds and do things for them so that they can get in the dirt and just and experience the farm a little bit. So I guess I guess personally and, program wise, I feel special that people really want to see us and then everybody else, right? Anybody else who's doing schooling programs. They're just clamoring to get to those programs. So I'd say that, yeah.
Thank you. And Liz?
For us, because we're newer, we didn't have a lot planned for last year. So I think we weren't affected in the same way as folks who really had a robust full slate of program offerings. But I do feel like it's been incredible how, just to agree with you, Seth, like how valuable these outdoor safe spaces are for people looking for something to do with their kids and a place to be. And even at our share pickup last year, with folks being able to safely linger and chat outdoors and be on the farm, it was amazing. So I think we have a firmer footing as we're going into a program year this year, with a shared understanding in the community that outdoor space is incredibly important. Kids being in nature is incredibly important, and people are looking for that. So I found that to be like a huge shift from years past.
Yeah, that's great. And I just want to remind everyone, if you have any questions, to put it in the chat. And so I see here that David Green asked a question of what constitutes success in your minds with the kids, and how do you measure it? So how do you measure success? What does success look like for you for your programs? And anyone can go.
Well, I'll start. Honestly, success for me, ground zero, is that no one gets hurt on the farm. I know that sounds so simple, but when we have middle schoolers come to the farm for volunteer days and they're using rakes and shovels, I am so afraid that that handle is going to go into a very expensive mouth that has braces, right? Or that somebody's going to step, like in the comics, they're going to step, if they don't put the shovel in a proper location, they're going to step on the shovel and it's going to like ricochet up. So yeah, for me, ground zero, success is no one got hurt. And then it all gets good from there, right? Like enthusiasm, happy faces, smiling when they're saying goodbye.
Thank you. How about you, Seth?
So because we work with schools and their science curriculums, I think a lot of times, barring somebody getting hurt, I think a lot of times people are, we're looking to hit those curriculum points, right? To make sure that they're getting what they need in terms of their science curriculum, at least for the part that we're involved in, right? And then also just, like Christine said, is the enthusiasm that's behind that. If you can sort of tell when a kid's not having a good time, and that stinks. You don't want them. You want them to have a good time. So so smiling faces for sure, having a good time, and then also I think it's not about money, but the marketing of that too, right? So when we hear people talk about our programs, that's certainly a benchmark. That's really great, right? Because then we know that we're reaching people, and their kids are saying really great things about it, and then their parents are saying really good things, and then somebody else is saying really good things. So that word of mouth is certainly a great bar to hit. And then I was thinking something else. Then, yeah. So for example, Natick has a lot of kids coming back and have formal programs, but just having the kids for me to come back, as teenagers and start to work on the farm, right? That was a huge thing for me anyway. To really understand and the importance of that program, because then they're telling everybody that they're in contact with that, I used to be a part of the 4th grade program, right? So that was I suppose eye-opening to me, just how much they remembered and wanted to do that. And actually, I think one of those people was 1 year late, and they were not a part of the first 4th grade program, and they hated it. They hated that they weren't a part of that program. But anyway, yeah, that's what's.
Thank you. How about you, Liz? As you're planning forward, as you're growing, how do you look to measure success?
This is really simple, but I love to see kids eating the farm food. I think we have a lot of kids who come to the farm that they'll engage with the hands-on activities, they'll get comfortable being out in the dirt and sort of all weathers, and you can sort of see that transformation happen. But I feel like the last bar is sort of like eating the food and enjoying the food. And to have kids like picking beans or peas or cherry tomatoes and just cramming them in their mouths, I think that is awesome. And that's what we're going for, which is like healthy and delicious food that's at peak flavor and high nutrients. And maybe that was a little weird to them or a little gross or they weren't sure. And to see them really going for it, there's nothing better than that.
Thank you. And then if you could kind of speak on how do you get input from the community about these programs? Do you have a set system? Is it more informal? If you guys could speak a little bit about that.
I could go first on this one. Since this is kind of the stage we're at in the life of our organization, is short answer is a lot of meetings and a lot of my time sitting down with folks and asking, what do they already have going? What are they looking for? And then hearing directly from people what they want. And so they're saying to us, we don't have something where kids can be outside. We don't have something where they're learning how to grow food. We don't have something where they have a farm partner that they can come to. So we're at a stage now where we're taking all that feedback and trying to turn it into a program plan for this season. And I think the next step for us will really be evaluating and setting up a feedback cycle for the end of the season, after the summer when the summer programs wrap up. How are we checking back with those partners and asking how it went and asking for feedback so we can keep improving and keep learning. So, we're in that stage. So love to hear from you other folks about what you do, how you do that.
I'll go. Well, just from a school point of view, I have a simple survey that I try to remember to send out after programs. And that's super helpful. I get feedback on how well the program met the science standards or how well my educator did. So or sometimes we fall a bit. So it's good to hear that too. That's how I personally get feedback in my programming. I can't speak for the other areas. I guess the proof is in the pudding. Like, when people come back year after year, say for our summer programs, that would be proof that we're doing something right. And then we have, revenue numbers that support what parts of the farm are robust and what parts aren't. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll reiterate that. That's all of those things seem to make sense to us. Although we don't do something so formal as sending a survey out. I think a lot of what we do is face-to-face. So the education staff will meet with the principal and the teacher who is helping to run that to get feedback, and but then also just sort of informal face-to-face things. So, for example, we ran a gardening class for adults, not necessarily for kids, but a gardening class for adults, and just having those people as they're leaving say, "This is a great class. Really enjoyed it. Really liked the information, etc., etc." But then also, direct feedback from kids who are enjoying whatever the thing is that they're doing. So, we have a small complement of animals. We have chickens and goats, and having them just love being next to them and touching them, like Christine said, and you can just see that they're enjoying it. So that's also feedback. But I think, like I said in the beginning, we meet with school staff every year to make sure that we are, as we go forward for that season, that we're hitting everything, and that's a time for direct feedback and what the schools are looking to change, or if we can do it, or whatever that is. So
Thank
yeah,
you.
most of it.
Yeah. And then I have a question, because this was it really was highlighted during the pandemic. Is there any way where you guys have addressed food insecurity within your communities or surrounding communities? Surely this is not a new thing, but during the pandemic, it would kind of just seen it really highlight. So if anyone could, speak a little bit about that.
So this isn't something I was involved in because, we're fairly segmented at the farm. But I know that a grant was written with the town of Natick when the pandemic started. So I think it was a pandemic inspired grant. And the town and the farm and a few other partners in Natick wrote a grant to address social and food resiliency. So I think this started last summer where we started giving CSA shares to senior citizens. And I believe it was subsidized. So I believe the seniors had to pay some nominal fee, like $5 a share. And then the grant paid for the other $5. So the CSAs were every other week and they were senior citizen sized. Which means not the usual huge amount that a family of four might get and still have trouble, consuming. So I think that was really kind of interesting for the farm to do because I don't think we've done a lot around that. And the management change 3 years ago at the farm, I think might prompt more of that. It's a really nice thing to see at the farm. We started joined the SNAP program. I'm not sure how that was administered, but we recently started that. And I believe our teens this summer are building raised beds at the Senior Housing Authority or the Natick Housing Authority. So not just seniors, but I think folks who have some kind of disability or they're lower income. So the beds will service them. So that's something we're doing. And I think it'd be great if we could do more of that. Organic produce is not inexpensive. So I'm not sure how we could fully address that on our own, but I think it's great that we're at least trying to partner and think outside of the box and move in that direction a bit. I mean, we sell all our produce either through our own CSAs or at the Natick Farmers Market or by the roadside in the summer. The kids actually sell at the roadside market stand. So we don't really have a lot of excess, but I think it's nice that the farm is trying to do this and explore, a new way of thinking about food insecurity.
Yeah, we've been participating in the SNAP and HIT program, since we were able to sign up for SNAP benefits being used for CSA shares. So we've been doing that since it was a pilot program. And now I think most farms can sign up if they want to. But to be honest, we haven't had a ton of people utilizing SNAP and HIT benefits through us, either at the farmers markets or through our CSA. And that's probably on us not marketing it properly or enough. But we also, like Christine said, going through or targeting seniors, we actually started a senior share as part of our CSA. And so we've been working with the local senior center coordinator to market those shares through SNAP so that seniors aren't paying anything, right? They're just paying through their SNAP benefits. And that just started this season. So we weren't able to administer that last season. So sort of hopefully at the tail end of this pandemic, we've opened that up too. So, and just beyond the pandemic, we're talking about, food insecurity that, is certainly much larger than that or exacerbated by the pandemic. So, so we're really, I'm excited that we're being able to offer that, and then hopefully just through marketing, marketing our SNAP and HIT benefits to the markets that we're at, will help people buy whatever they want, so, but yeah.
For us, It's a big part of what we do. It's part of our mission explicitly. And so we fundraise significant dollars so that we can grow food and give it away. And we do that in a couple ways. We have CSA shares that are free. We work with our local food pantry in town to identify folks in need, and they come to us and get a free share and are just part of our CSA community like anybody else. So at pickup, you don't know who's getting a free share or who's paid. It's trying to just have a same experience for everybody at all price points. This year, we also are trying out a sliding scale price point for our shares. So when you go online to buy your share with us at Three Sisters, there's a drop down menu of prices. It's just built right into the sign up, which is new for us. So there's a base price listed, and then you can, if you're doing well and have money to give, you can choose a higher price point, which is a tax deductible donation to the organization that will go toward another family who needs help with a share. Or if you need to pay a little less, if you're having a tough year for any reason, you can choose a lower price point. And we've had about 30% of all of our members giving an extra donation this year, which has been amazing. Higher percentage than I thought going in. It's been really fabulous. And around 10% paying less on the sliding scale, which I think is saying to me that we need to do more at getting the word out to lower income folks or people who might be facing a need, that this is an option that's available to them. About a quarter of all of our CSAs are going to the free and sliding scale folks, and 3/4 are going to the full paying. The CSA itself is about 2/3 of our overall farm production, and then the other third is going out to partners, food pantries in the area who are doing cooked meals, mobile markets, and food pantry pickups with our food. So we're at this point, we're at like a 2/3 paid, although of that 2/3, a quarter is free and sliding scale, and then 1/3 of our total production going out through the partners who handle distribution for us, which is awesome. Our goal is to move that percentage. I'd love for us to get to 50-50 paid and giveaway food. We're just finding in the pandemic, the need is tremendous, and all the partners we work with have seen real increase in folks coming who need access to food. So that's the direction we're headed. But for now, that's about where we are.
Thank you so much. Oh,
I have something, but Liz, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Are you finding that sliding scale, that the 30% that are paying extra is enough to subsidize the 10% that can't pay or need a lesser dollar amount?
Yes, that's covering the 10%. It's not covering the free shares though. So we are looking elsewhere for funding for those.
Yeah.
As well as all the donated bulk produce.
Yeah, so that's something that I've considered as well. And I just don't know if that would, if it would cover, or if it would just be a lot of people just not being able to, not to pay the full amount or whatever. So,
right. Yeah. I didn't know what to expect. And another farm who does it told me they're at around 30%, and then we're landing in exactly the same place, which is really interesting. And most people are giving $25, $50 more. So they're not huge gifts, but they add up, which has been great. So it is covering all the sliding scale lower price shares, which is really neat.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I totally recommend it. And I think we were intimidated because it's a question in the budget and we have hard budget goals we have to hit. But talking to some other farms who had done it and other types of businesses, we just took a leap and went for it, and it's totally worked. So feel free to liberally poach from our website if you want.
Thanks.
Where it's for anybody to use.
Yeah. I also wanted to say that, I totally forgot about our donations. So, part of the thing that we did is we partnered with a company, Exelon, that actually donated a dollar amount for us to grow and then just give away that food. So it sort of subsidized our growing of the food to give to our 2 local food pantries, as well as the family shelter that's in town. And so that plus any extra food that we have always goes to those avenues, if we have any extra veg. But yeah, huge part, giving away the food to the people who need it. And we can't, even with that donation, we cannot supply enough food to those places for the need of those bases. and granted, you know, if we can give, we could probably give away everything and it still wouldn't be enough for the, you know, for the need. But yeah, 50-50 is a good goal, Liz. That's I bet that would be hard to hit. But yeah.
Thank you. And I just want to be mindful of time. So we have about 9 minutes left, but we do have a question in the chat from Cheryl. And she says, I'm curious about local permitting for your activities. I'm a semi-rural community and we have some large farms surrounded by residential neighborhoods. Resistance to traffic is a sticking point no matter what educational programs are going on. We like to foster more farm to school programs, but I'm concerned about local permits, even though we are a right to farm community. Is this an issue for anyone? And if so, how do you handle it?
I can go. It's not an issue for us. Our challenges have been more, our landlords are cautious about large groups. So we have worked with them to get permission ahead of time if we have a group over 10, which is sort of the line for them that makes it challenging. The other challenge that we face is our landlord wanting us to have certain insurance and liability waivers, which we've developed. And now folks, if they're going to come volunteer or participate in a program, sign a waiver of liability. But we haven't had the particular problem of people pushing back as far as neighbors. I feel like our neighbors have been awesome and we're very fortunate in that way.
Yeah, we are not, you know, we have, like I said before, we have a pretty good relationship with the town, given the fact that we're on mostly town land. And so permitting hasn't really been a problem, you know, with that sort of thing. In terms of like camp status, that's a different story. You know, you have to be you have to meet very specific things in order to have a camp. Christine, you know, said that, you know, they run a preschool program that's not a preschool, you know, because of licensing, that's super hard to get. So, so that's a different story. But in terms of permitting, we don't really have a problem. Our problem really is around space, and so parking, like you had said, Cheryl, is tough because we have a small parking area for our farm store. We do have a field that we can use, you know, an open grass field, open meadow field that we can use for parking in that sense, which we do for our seedling sale every May. But then even then, when we have events, you know, we have to be very mindful of how we're circulating people through that parking area. And now we're actually reaching out to, we're surrounded by another farm as well. So we've been reaching out to them, trying to seeing if we can use like parking on their lot as well. I suppose the only problem that we have is we can't park on the street. You know, the police don't really like us to do that. So even though sometimes people do it anyway, but yeah, not really around permitting, but definitely about space for us.
I can go. Yeah, it's fascinating you bring up parking because we've been having a huge parking problem, and it's a weekly conversation at the farm, it seems, for which there doesn't seem to be much of a solution right now. So fortunately, most of our farm is bordered by either the driveway leading up to the adjacent elementary school that's next to us. So we have driveway, or we have wetland, or we have the Sudbury Aqueduct that backs up against the farm. So we do have a few homes that are close to the farm, but I think because the farm has been there for so long that anybody who moves in and buys one of those homes should surely know what they're getting into. So there might be complaints, but I wouldn't be the person that they would complain to anyways. So I guess I'm lucky in that respect, but people fully know what they're getting into. And just in terms of what we call programs. So our summer programs are definitely not camps. We don't use that word, and we don't use it in our marketing materials. And the forest program for preschoolers is just that. It's not a preschool. It's not a preschool in the woods. It's definitely a forest program for preschoolers. So we're really careful about the language that we use, and we try to stay within the guidelines that the state provides for us about how to name things. So, yeah.
Christine, during the summer, are you able to use the school parking?
We can. We can also use it on the weekends. Because the school backs up to the Sudbury Aqueduct, there's an access road there. And so presumably parking for the public, and there's public tennis courts. So the farm more and more has been using the school parking. I'm not sure they love that or that they kind of know. But I think on the weekend they don't care, and probably in the summer they don't care as much, but it's been happening a little bit during the school day, and we're just trying to fly under the radar on that. But yeah, it's, you know, our farm is also, we're open to the public 7 days a week, dawn to dusk, for free. So we have a lot of families who come during the week with, you know, kids and strollers and carrots to feed the goats. And so, yeah, parking has been a big issue for us.
Okay, and so we have 2 minutes left, and I just want to kind of close off with, if you guys can tell me 1 or 2 sentences what you love about what you do and why it's so important to do this work.
1 and 2 sentences, Carissa?
Yeah. I want to be mindful of people's time, so.
Yeah, I'll go first. So why do I do what I do, and why do I love it? Is those 2 questions?
And why it's important for this work to be done.
You know, my whole story is a separate thing, but the reason why I do this is, you know, I've worked for other nonprofit organizations plus nonprofit farms. So this sort of work is very important to me. And, you know, on a personal level, my own food struggles, I suppose, if you want to think of it that way, just coming to my terms for my own education about the food system and how we can change that from within, or I suppose from without, you know, just not being a part of the food thing and giving directly back to local foods, but also the importance of the education. You know, organic farming is a whole other thing, but the education is certainly important, so that, you know, future generations are certainly going to learn and be mindful of the problems that are going forward in our food systems, locally as well as on the world scale, and how they can be a part of the solution for that. So,
Thank you. Liz?
What a big question. I think personally, for me, what I love about it is I get to use all parts of myself in this role. Physical work in the field, creativity, problem solving, people skills. It's a great balance of introvert, extrovert, which I happen to be right in the line. So like, it's personally super satisfying to have such a well-rounded position. And I think for me to have a job where I can be explicit about my values means a lot, especially during the pandemic when inequality and is really increasing in this small part of the world where I live. And so to be able to make an active difference with folks and getting high quality food to people who need it is really powerful.
Thank you. And Christine?
Well, because I'm, you know, solidly in the education department, for me, I just do it because I love turning kids on to big ideas, making connections for kids that they wouldn't make on their own about how the natural world works together. Yeah, I think for me, that's why I do that. So.
Thank you. This was such a pleasure speaking with all of you, and I'm just so grateful for all of the work you do and for taking time out of your day to do this. And so for everyone that is curious, you can access this recording on our website. Feel free to reach out to us. if you guys have any question, and I'm sure they wouldn't mind if you reached out to them if you guys had any questions. And thank you again, and have a great day, guys. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.